Hi, Jeremy here from the golfing curriculum. Today we're talking about short pitching, 20, 30, 40 yards. We'll talk about how to make good contact, how to control distance, and actually how really not to control distance, and also the mental side and planning the shot. So lots to talk about. Let's get into it.
Now, planning this shot and visualizing it aren't going to matter at all if you're terrified that you're going to fat the ball or thin it. So firstly, technique. How are we going to make good contact? Well, what we need to do is contact the ball on the downswing. What we must not do is have the club rising and the low point back here. You'll hit the ground first. If you don't do that, you hit the top of the ball. So those two mistakes are caused by the same error. So we have to hit the ground at a consistent point every single time. The two things that matter, firstly address position and head position in particular, and the second thing, the path of the swing. We'll come to that in a minute, but firstly the address. Now, in the address position here, really narrow, ball by the trail heel, 4 inches inside the front heel, but the most important part of all is that my head is in front of the ball, because that is where I'm going to hit the ground. Ball first, ground second. So I think you can see that nice and clearly here from close up. Divot's just there, so put the ball just at the start of the divot, and then you get a nice clean contact. So that's the first job. Now, the second thing that makes a really big difference to the shot is the path of the club, which should always be a mirror image. You can see it very clearly here at first parallel. Club is horizontal, parallel to the line of the shot, and I can repeat that on the other side. If I was playing this right-handed, 9 o'clock here, 3 o'clock there, the path of the club would be identical. I call this being on the clock, and if you do that, then you will hit the ground at the same point each time. If you combine it with the head being in front, then the divots start to appear at exactly the same place each time. If you don't do that, then the divots can be more behind the ball. For example, if you stand wide with the head behind the ball, then divot will be here. Whoops. Divot will be back here. And if I go inside too much, or if my arm gets dragged behind me, then the divot will be early as well. Now you can see this a bit more clearly, perhaps from close up. Club's round the corner too much, should be here, and it is here, so it's always going to bottom out this way. Too early, terrible for chipping, because suddenly now the club is coming from low here to high here. So let's assume that we can make a 9 o'clock and even a 10 o'clock swing and hit the ball, and they'll come out nicely, and that's perfect. However, that won't actually help you gauge the shot. What we need to do is start to measure these shots. Now, with a 60-degree wedge that I've got here, then I know, because I've measured them in the past, that my 9 o'clock swing goes 13 yards to where it lands, and my 10 o'clock swing goes 22. And I haven't just done that for my lob wedge, I've done it for all my wedges. Now, here are my 4 wedges. I've got 60, a 56, 52 and a 48, 4-degree spacings. I think that's right for me, and I think that's a good guide actually for anybody. It really doesn't matter how many you have though. You don't have to have 4 wedges. Even if you've got 2 or even 3, then it's what you do with them that really counts. But I like, if you're going to load up on the wedges and give yourself the flexibility of having different flights, then 4-degree spacings is really good. Doesn't matter whether you start at 60 degrees or 58, as long as the degrees are even. So I've got 31 yards to that flag and 22 yards to carry the bunker. So my 10 o'clock swing will just about get there if I lengthen it ever so slightly. That's absolutely perfect. Run on a bit on the hard ground, but couldn't hit any better. But I had complete faith that I was going to get the distance. And once you start measuring these shots, you will have the same. It's ultra reliable.
Now, the one thing you really don't want to do is just practice aiming at a target. That isn't going to give you the information that you really need. What you need to do is measure certain lengths of swings and see how far they go and measure that. A bit like what you do if you wanted to know how far your 7-iron went or your 8-iron went. You might go to a top tracer or a TrackMan range and note down how far your full swings go without any preconception actually of what that was going to happen. Same with these shots. If you measure what actually happens, you've got a framework. If you just go, oh, I think I'll eyeball it, then actually what you're doing is missing out on the measurements that can really help you and give you certainty in situations like this. Because in this kind of situation, the bunker would be in the forefront of your mind. You'd be frightened of hitting it into it, so you probably go too long, and then it's a problem. You're not going to get up and down very often, and it might take 4 to get down when actually all you needed to do was know your distances. And with my 60 as I've got here, 9 o'clock that goes 13 yards, 10 o'clock 22, L swing I call it, that goes 38, and I don't really hit full swing with this one. And I do the same thing for all my other wedges as well, so I've got distances that I can really trust. Now obviously the ball doesn't come to rest 22 yards away from where I want to hit it all the time, but at least I've got a framework from which to work. Gives absolute certainty about what you're trying to do, and is way better than guessing. You look at a shot like this and you think, well, I think it might be this. Is not really a strategy. So a word about the mental side and decision making and what clubs to maybe use. Once you've got your distances, then this all becomes much more doable. Also, don't use the most lofted club all the time. In this instance, obviously, I've got to go over an obstacle and stop it quickly on hard ground. But don't be afraid to use pitching wedge and gap wedge and sand wedge and even 9-iron for these shots when there's no obstacles in play. Perhaps for a back pin or an upslope or a tiered green. You really don't need necessarily to play the highest possible shot, and in many instances the low shot will be better. Certainly on links courses where you've got bank or a pin, like I said, at the back. If the pin's at the front, yeah, you need to stop it, then you will probably need loft unless you can land it short of the green and run it on. And again, in hard conditions like we've got here today, then that is an option as well. But what this system gives you is mental clarity. You can see where you're going to try and land the ball. You know that a certain length of swing will give a certain flight with a certain club, and then you can plan the shot with so much more confidence. It really does make a difference. All my pupils learn this, and I think it's a really important thing to get right. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Don't forget there's a free download on my website. The link is in the description. It's on the driver. It might help you hit a few more fairways. And thank you again for watching. See you next time for another shot on the golfing curriculum.